Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Price Targets with your host, Bitcoin Jack. It's been a couple of days and time for an update. So today we're going to be looking at basically small review. I don't think a lot has happened since the last video. There's a couple of updates here on Bitcoin that may warrant some upside. ETH probably doesn't require a lot of reviewing because it's still doing the same thing it's been doing for the last week. And then some things went kind of a bit fuzzy on Luna. That was pretty shitty. But first, I want your attention for the sponsor, Prime XBT, the exchange where you can trade futures, where you can trade spot, you can trade equities, commodities, all kinds of stuff. If you appreciate these videos and want to check out Prime XBT, you can use the promo code BitcoinJack, and you will get 0.5 BTC up to 0.5 BTC matched on your first deposit as a bonus. There's some conditions that apply, so make sure you check that out. But it's a lovely offer, and I appreciate it very much, Prime. So if you like it, check them out, and that makes everyone a little bit more happy. To continue, so there's last week I was of the opinion that once we would start to break down here, we would retest this level and then puke through the diagonal. Kind of went pretty sideways on that ID. I did post a tweet on Twitter that said that I was expecting a little bit of a squeeze, that once we got down here at the low, around 38.5 to 39, that was going to squeeze. And now it's kind of squeezing. I'm not really sure whether it is as a full reversal or is just a general like full size squeeze. It's just going a little bit higher than I would have expected it to go, though there is obviously these highs here that can be taken out. Maybe it's going to happen, maybe it's not going to happen. But that squiggly looked something like this. I think it's a two-piece squiggly. And then if we dive into the lower time frames, I was expecting at least to get these highs up here rated, which obviously happened, but price is now pumping towards these highs. So obviously, if this goes above here, this is a squiggly that we were talking about last week without going down here. If this goes above here and then kind of gets rejected, that makes for a potential short setup. If that's not going to be the case, I do think we're going to go into this trend line up here and aim for this, or the block that pushed us down here, potentially this up here. So maybe we can that a little more obvious. Something like this would make a lot of sense. These highs into this little block, potentially these wicks as well into this trend line. That's kind of where the next major resistance should be at. If this doesn't get rejected here, there's kind of like my thoughts here would be that this is a correction where we got A, B, C, like ABC, ABC, and then a little run up. So maybe we take out this, maybe we get rejected here, but I do think that this is setting up for further downside after the squeeze to the upside. To go back to this here, same diagonal here, which is perpendicular to this one. We're kind of above that. If we go back below that, that's in itself weakness, and we should go down here. And then we have this entire zone here that we talked about to be resistance. And obviously we're now testing this. So I'm going to be a little bit patient on how high this goes. But there's on weakness, if there's any weakness appearing, there's a short setup to reveal. And so far, It's not a ton of volume. I mean, this was decent, comparable, but lower than any of the volume before. So to me, this still kind of feels like a short squeeze in redistribution. So I kind of gotta wait how that works out. But if the weakness persists, then I do think that this ultimately remains the target. So, you know, the 33 to 35 is where demand sets to get tested. If that makes sense. We could zoom out here and then also see that, you know, we got the weekly level here, which we're going to be trading into to get retested, and the monthly is the gray box. So obviously a retest of that could happen, and then further down, if price gets back to this diagonal, it's going to get very tricky for price to bounce off that once again, like once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. So any further tests of this diagonal would probably break. But for now, there's a relief rally, and I'm not really keen on just blindly fading that to the upside. That makes sense. Then we could review ETH, but like I said, there's not much happening. We're still kind of hobbling around. Setup remains the same. You could watch previous videos if you want to find out in more detail what I've been saying here. But basically, if we lose the monthly level here again, I do think we're going to trade into the blue box down here and potentially the monthly level down here. Because it kind of, you know, becomes a deviation of sorts of this range. So then you got the impulse down like that, and then the corrective structure like that, and then continuation down. I'm not particularly bullish on ETH. I haven't been particularly bullish on ETH for a while. I think it's so one thing, yeah. So let me just, you know, go over the whole burning mechanism of Ethereum. So ballparking the numbers. Let's see. Ballparking the numbers, we got, let's say, somewhere around here, the whole burning started, and then the amount of ETH that has been burned equals somewhere in the range of like 1.6 to 1.8% of the total supply, right? That's equal to the Bitcoin halving. The last Bitcoin halving, we went from like 3 point something% inflation annually to like 1.7% inflation annually. And if you look at what Bitcoin did into the halving and then after the halving, that was a giant dislocation of supply and demand. And this thing, you know, relative to Bitcoin, obviously, it's just been going sideways. So I would have expected that to have a lot more impact, though it obviously didn't. So to me, that's a sign of weakness. You know, artificial created demand, or, you know, artificially taken away supply, and then no reaction all that time. Just, you know, to me that screams weakness, distribution. So that's just a little fundamental piece of thought on why I'm so, you know, not particularly wanting to go bullish on ETH. So yeah, and then we got Luna, and Luna kind of, you know, fucked me. So I wanted to trade getting the rejection here, and it kind of gave that rejection, but then it just nuked to the upside. So I'm not really sure. You know, this is a jolly candle, like a big candle, like big engulfing candle. So I don't necessarily want to like fade this kind of candle, right? So I might just retry the same setup if this comes down again. Let me delete this. That was an old thing. do the whole same thing again down here. Just not particularly interested in doing that. And then before we did the retest here, or before we broke down here, when price was here, I was kind of hoping that price would come here and then I would have shorted it. Obviously it went down and then it went up, so we trapped and stopped out a bunch of people who, you know, were doing the same thing as I was planning here, and then I just nuked all of them. So I'm not gonna, you know, there's no reason for me to be bearish here. This is probably at least gonna come up here, but I'm not really saying the setup how I want it to evolve, so I'm just gonna leave this be for the time being. Axie, same thing, hasn't broken down, still looking for these levels to be retested, and if this breaks down from here, takes out the lows and then reclaims it, I think, you know, that might be a good long, at least into these levels, and potentially, you know, taking out these highs. So there's this range. If it gets rejected from here and then starts to trade lower, definitely time to short it and fill up the gap to the left. Sis, I'm still waiting for this breakout, so nothing to be updated there. This isn't this other thing that we talked about. So the S&P 500 reached our target, and we've been right on our dollar thesis of the dollar going higher. So essentially at some point I would expect gold to kind of start feeling that, right? Like a more expensive dollar is just not something that should be bullish on gold, except if there's a lot of demand, which, you know, begs the question, is there a lot of demand right now? I do think that I want to be contrarian here as well, and you know, either get short down here and then trade down here. I think this is on my Twitter too. Or if we kind of go higher and then come down, there's like two places of entry, three actually. We can still use these three levels, trade them level to level, and then if the downside actually manages to persist, this here is the target, so 1870. And there's like a bunch of models that say that the intrinsic, like the fair value of gold is much lower, around 1600. So kind of curious, you know, if this double top manages to really become a double top and then trade back to the range low that we've been in for about 2 years now. If this makes new highs, that kind of seems important, and then it's just going to run, I'd assume. So new all-time high is big arrow to the upside. I think that kind of sums it up for today. Yields are just going bazooka. Let me see if I can get this on a weekly. Yeah, this is like the 30-year chart. You can see how it's kind of breaking out a 20-year trend. It's 20 years. So this is gonna, you know, this is gonna suck up a lot of liquidity out of the markets as well. It has to. Same goes for the 10-year. So this is also, you know, this is probably also a reason for the dollar to go well, because demand for dollars and just, you know, dollars getting reinvested into bonds, into new auctions, that should kind of get some of that supply fixed and push up the dollar further. So pretty much all these assets that would be rallying to the upside, gold, the S&P 500, Bitcoin, they all have this invisible kind of resistance, which, you know, if it goes up, obviously gets balanced by demand, but it's just something that's going to pull, you know, drag markets in their quote unquote bullishness, if that makes sense. So I think I'm just going to leave it here, 15 minutes. Next video, I'm going to see if I can squeeze in a little kind of review on the whole macro thing. I'm not an expert on macro by any means. But yeah, like it makes a lot of sense that it's very important for whatever's going on in the world and for Bitcoin, and it's kind of all correlated. And obviously, you know, there could be this catalyst for Bitcoin. Maybe it's going to be an ETF, or maybe it's going to be more nation states adopting it, or maybe it's just going to be an infinite bid on Bitcoin. Let's see what's going on here. Yeah, so it's now taking out the high here. Still not. Let's say on the hourly. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, obviously any rejection from up here down back below this trend line would give opportunities and show weakness. If this can just, you know, stop here, get rejected, that's a downside move. And if more volume is gonna develop here, it's gonna go up further to the north. But I'm just gonna stick on the bear side for now. And I know there's a few guys that I actually highly value who are pretty bullish from this point. So maybe I'll have to go and switch my bias. But for now, you know, we had a good trade to the downside here. There's some room for a squeeze, and then I do think there's going to be downside continuation. And hopefully I'm not wrong on that. And if I'm wrong, hopefully I can get a video or a tweet out in time to kind of negate that thought. But yeah, resistance, a lot of resistance. There's resistance in the blue box, there's resistance here, and then we have the resistance of this trend line. So if we get acceptance above all these levels, then I do think we're gonna go and rally back to the red line and to the gray box above. And I do not have a setup right now how to trade that into there. So this has come up too much already. All right, I'm gonna stop recording the video. Thanks to Prime XBT, the sponsor. Go check them out. Thank you very much, and thanks for your time. If you liked it, you know, go check out Prime or give this a like or subscribe, whatever you feel like. And see you Thursday. Peace.